Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about some issues that are relevant to boutique hotels. We're going to talk specifically about next year, about 2025, and some things that are going to be relevant to think about. There's a lot of things going on right now in hospitality. And first, let's take a very quick look back. This is going to be part one of two, by the way. There's 20 things that we wanted to talk about. It got a little long, so we cut it into two pieces. So in a few days, you'll see part two with 10 more items. So today we're going to talk about 10, and then we're going to talk about 10 more in the next session. Welcome. Today we are going to talk about the future, but first, let's revisit the past very quickly just for context, right? There is post-pandemic recovery. There's been some, booms and, in travel that were unexpected in certain markets with revenge travel and other things. There's also the rise of wellness and experiential travel, which was kind of maybe going on before the pandemic, but has accelerated since then. And then continued dependence on OTAs. I see a lot of headlines about direct bookings growing or just breaching more than 50%. But a lot of times that's driven by chain hotels, doesn't always pertain to boutique hotels as a category, although we've seen many boutique hotels grow their direct bookings significantly because there's a lot of great tools out there now and techniques. So we can talk about all of that, but OTAs continue to be very strong for some very good reasons that we're going to talk about. Sustainability and eco-conscious travel is also very important. A lot of guests do prefer eco-friendly practices, and it does help your brand. Labor shortages and cost pressures. This is perhaps one of those effects that's still lingering in some markets after COVID, right? A lot of people left the industry and got new careers and perhaps don't want to come back. So there are a lot of those issues still going on in many markets. And then there's technology advancements, right? Artificial intelligence is probably the most obvious thing that's getting a lot of attention, but there's a lot of digital tools that are growing, and guests are also experiencing these things with other online retailers. So they also expect it from hotels, and they expect it from boutique hotels as well to some degree. So let's jump into these things to think about for next year. As we think about 2025, and I go through this list, keep in mind, this is in no particular order. And I did that very intentionally because, some items might be more relevant to certain hotels and not relevant to others. So this does depend on your hotel and your market, or perhaps your level of development. There are some things that are really critical to have in place first, and some of these might be a nice to have if you don't have the fundamentals in place. So these are in no particular order, but they are all significant issues to think about for next year. So 30%, is a number that kind of stands out for a lot of people. It's, 30% higher guest satisfaction from hotels that incorporate eco-friendly practices. This is especially strong in regions like Europe and the Pacific. Guests are increasingly looking for eco-conscious options, even when they're seeking luxury. And so boutique hotels can stand out with sustainable practices like using local materials or reducing water and energy and plastic. And you should let your guests know about that. Sometimes it's a fairly easy thing to do, and you can let your guests know. And frankly, it helps your brand as well for them to just realize that you care, right? And so I think that's what a lot of guests get impressed by and like, either in the pre-booking process when they see some of those things on your website, or maybe during the experience as well. So those are things that can increase your guest satisfaction, and sometimes they're pretty easy to implement. So look for those opportunities. 30 to 50% of hotel bookings are on mobile devices. Now, this varies a lot by market or by situation, but there are definitely markets, significant markets, where hotel bookings are, 40, 50% on mobile. So it is really significant. And I see a lot of hotels missing this opportunity, especially when it comes to promotions on OTAs and having mobile specific offers. That can really boost your revenue a lot. I would suggest that you find a way to incorporate that. I know sometimes those discounts stack and things like that, so it gets a little bit complicated, but find a way to include the mobile options in your promotional structure, because it will give you a lot more visibility and a lot more reservations. And I think that's generally a good thing. Now, I know we don't want to maximize our OTA business, right? But I do believe in doing the best job in each channel So if you're going to be in OTAs at all, then you might as well, have good visibility there. You do want to do a better job, and there's a lot of things you can do to get more direct business. And so that also includes mobile experience, right? So mobile platforms are critical for reaching modern travelers, and many boutique hotels fall short on their direct offering. And that's a big part of why many hotels are not able to increase their percentage of direct bookings, is because their mobile experience is poor. And a lot of people will just maybe go to an OTA, or maybe just kind of tap out if they're busy. You got to remember, right, when somebody's on a mobile device, they might be commuting to work on a train, they might have one hand, or they might be in a situation where their kids kind of interrupt them, and they might never come back to it. So those are important missed opportunities. It does need to be easy, and I believe in mobile first, and then you can figure out the desktop. If you can get the mobile experience right, usually the desktop is doing very well, or can be really good. So think about that when you choose your platform. Think about the entire user experience and the user interface, right? And think about it from a mobile perspective first. That will help you provide a much better experience. And it is part of why OTAs are still very strong, because their mobile experience is fast, intuitive, and reliable. And so if you want to increase your direct bookings, I suggest you improve or focus on mobile. And seamless is a key word there, right? So improving the mobile experience can help capture a larger share of direct bookings. We've seen that with many of our clients very directly, but it's also in a lot of the data. So that will continue to be a major issue in 2025. I would say that for many hotels, this could be the single most impactful issue on revenue. All of these are important. Like I said, these are not in any particular order, but for me, this is one where I think there's a lot of upside for many hotels. Now, for some, perhaps not. If you have an awesome mobile experience and you're getting, 30, 40, 50% of your reservations on mobile, then great. Then you're probably doing pretty well. So maybe you focus on other issues. All right, health and wellness offerings. So 7% growth in wellness tourism, and that's over just the last couple of years. It's most popular among affluent travelers in urban and resort locations, and that tends to be the kind of property that we work with. It's also, good to know that, these are things that appeal to more affluent people, right? People who are going to spend more money. So for many boutique hotels, that is a key target, right? People are going to fly a long distance, perhaps, or maybe your ADR and your pricing are very high. Maybe you're a luxury resort, so you want to appeal to affluent travelers, and they are looking for these kinds of experiences, that provide maybe mental and physical well-being. Then they come back and they've had a real vacation. So I think a lot of times when hotel managers and boutique hotel people who work at a boutique hotel, they live in this sort of paradise, right? And they kind of forget a little bit. They take it a little bit for granted. You kind of get used to living in this wonderful, beautiful, tranquil place, and you kind of forget a little bit about what your guests are living day to day, right? They might be living in a very busy, loud urban area with a lot of concrete and nonstop noise, and not a lot of nature. And so very often what they're coming to you for is a peaceful oasis, right? Where they can spend some time and really relax and mentally and physically feel better, and then come back recharged to their urban jungle. So put yourself in their mind frame sometimes. And things like yoga, spa treatments, and wellness retreats are all very popular as well, and growing. And these experiences create a very memorable stay as well. When you kind of touch somebody on an emotional, spiritual level, they tend to remember that a lot, and they tend to tell other people about it. So it can attract a loyal clientele as well. And of course, the word there, rejuvenation, everybody's looking for that always, right? So also localized and authentic experiences are becoming more popular as well. 30% is the number of repeat business at properties experiencing or offering localized experiences, right? And this is especially true from international guests, right? And that kind of makes sense. It's kind of obvious, right? That people, when they travel internationally to another country, they're looking for a more of a localized experience. For example, in the US, if somebody's just traveling to Florida, yes, that's very nice, but they're not necessarily they're looking for a localized experience there as well, I think. But I think it's even more so if they go to the Caribbean or if they go to Latin America or to Europe, right? They are looking for a more localized experience. And so that will incur, more repeat business as well. Really gets them out of their element as well, right? Kind of like I was saying before, put yourself or imagine yourself in their shoes, in their day to day, which is probably very different from yours. And boutique hotels are very good at this, right? Immersing guests in local culture. That's a big part of why you are a boutique hotel and not a cookie cutter. It's also part of why they seek out boutique hotels, is to get a little local flavor, right? Local cuisine, regional art, guided tours, and you can often deliver experiences that larger chains either cannot replicate or they don't do that well, right? So these efforts can connect guests to the destination, also making their stay more unique and memorable and creating, more stories for them to tell people. Now, flexible booking policies, this may seem obvious, but this does continue as a result of COVID. So I would pay a lot of attention to this as well. It can certainly increase your revenue a lot. I know some people want to avoid cancellations, and everybody wants to avoid cancellations, but it's a small price to pay for the extra revenue. So not only do you get higher sort of rates, ADR, per night, but you get a lot more bookings as well. So if you have some flexible cancellation policies, I've seen many hotels will get a lot more bookings, even if they have more cancellations. What they're left with after the cancellations is a much higher number of bookings and a higher rate per night. So I think a lot of hotels miss that opportunity, and guests still favor, flexibility and cancellations and modifications. And, boutique hotels can implement generous policies that build trust and improve conversion rates. And really, it's about offering a nice guest experience, which boutique hotels have the flexibility to do, right? Which, some of the chains may not have. And that's another way to leverage your strengths. So highlighting these policies on your website can also increase direct bookings. It's a very, very good tool to close people when they land on your website and they're trying to decide if they should book this or not, or maybe they should keep shopping around either to other hotels or maybe shop for a better rate at your hotel, but in a different channel, which of course is always going to be more expensive than direct. So highlight this on your website. I can't stress that enough. I mean, some of you do it very well, but I've seen a lot of hotels that have a really great, very generous cancellation policy or other factors, and it's not really highlighted that clearly on the website. And so they think that, guests are going to see it maybe in the fine print or somewhere, but no, it needs to be front and center, or a lot of guests will miss it, especially if they're on mobile. Again, the mobile experience is very important. It's a small screen. You got to work with that. I know, everybody wants to show beautiful pictures, and you can do that, but still try and show your flexible booking policies, and highlight that. So revenue management and dynamic pricing is becoming more and more important. This I think is a really big one. We do this a lot for a lot of hotels, and 15 to 20% is the potential increase in RevPAR at boutique properties that use dynamic pricing. So this is, some global research, and tends to focus on North America, but still I think it applies to many regions. And we do a lot of work in the Caribbean and Latin America, and we see these numbers easily attainable. From some hotels who don't do any dynamic pricing and don't do revenue management, this is low-hanging fruit, to just start doing something, right? Eventually you can get, automation and software and maybe have a revenue manager. But frankly, a lot of boutique hotels, the economics are never going to support a really trained, full-time revenue manager with all of the revenue management software and tools and data. that's a pretty high fixed cost. And if you don't have that many rooms and revenue, it may not pay for itself very easily or maybe ever, right? Even if that person does a fabulous job, there's not that much revenue. There's a lot of fixed costs there. So you can have somebody do that part-time. I think in smaller hotels, that's the other thing, is it doesn't need to be a full-time job. It can easily be done very effectively with just a few hours a week if you're doing the right things and you have the right tools. So I think this is a really important thing. This has grown a lot in the last 4 or 5 years amongst a lot of hotels. And so if you're not doing it at all or not doing it very well, or you're struggling to do it regularly, then I think you need to think about prioritizing this, because a lot of your competitors are, right? They are continually ratcheting this up. And I've seen that in many of our clients that have gotten better and better and better, just in the last year or two, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. And so you're going to fall behind if you do nothing in this area. So effective revenue management is essential for profitability and pricing your hotel properly, pricing each room properly for the next 100 days or 200 days, and also pricing it for each of those days, right? Some days it's higher, some days it's lower, and each day has a different supply and demand. So your rates should be going up and down a lot. That's why it's called dynamic pricing, right? And I still see some hotel managers that are a little reluctant to do that. They don't want to fluctuate the price a lot. They want to have nice, stable prices. Frankly, I think that's a legacy of the past, when prices were distributed by paper, maybe by fax, maybe by PDF, maybe by email. That's not the case anymore. It's now a fluid river. You need to think about it as a river that's running, and it's continually flowing based on certain rocks and obstacles that are in the way, and we call that supply and demand and price elasticity. And we have other presentations that go deeper into that. But I think dynamic pricing is something that every hotel should be doing, and there's a lot of different ways to do it yourself. You can do it on the cheap, or you can invest a lot more money. So anyway, analyzing demand for each day in the future and then adjusting those rates maybe every week or at least every 2 weeks, depending on your market or your hotel. You can sell a lot more rooms at optimal rates. So boutique hotels need simple tools, but effective tools, so that they can just adjust rates based on occupancy and a few key variables without getting too complicated. Now, this may seem complicated. I do not expect you to read this, but this is sort of an example of how we've done it for a few hotels. This is kind of a vertical data layout, and we submit this to AI. We've been doing this also even without artificial intelligence. We've been doing this kind of a format for a lot of different hotels, and basically, we use occupancy and time left to sell, and we do it for each room type, and we kind of identify dates when rates could be higher because there's a lot of time left, and we've already sold quite a few rooms, so you should be raising rates, or certain dates when rates need to be lower because time is kind of getting short, or there's significantly less demand on those dates. So I won't go into this in detail, but this is just kind of an example of ways that it can be done. If you like or subscribe or comment on our content, it really does help us a lot. So even if you never buy any of our stuff, if you could just do that for us, would be great. Really appreciate it. So digital guest journeys, 25% higher satisfaction scores in properties with advanced technology, right? And by that, it has to do with a lot of different ways that guests interact with technology, whether it's a tablet or their iPhone. And the digital guest journey starts, before the booking, and then the booking, and then the arrival perhaps, and then during the stay, and then afterwards. So think about all of the different stages of the guest journey and how you can give them extra value through digital channels, right, or digital devices for every stage of their trip, because some guests are expecting that, and they're getting that from other hotels. So, whether it's the easy booking or the in-room service requests, like room service and things of that nature, creating a digital journey without friction enhances the guest experience. So if you do it with friction, that's not so good, right? That's not generally appreciated. So think about that, right? If you're going to implement something, make sure that it doesn't become a nuisance to the guest, or think about privacy issues and all of those things. So it's not that simple, but certainly there's a lot of guests that really appreciate that, and it makes it very memorable for them. It could be digital check-ins or keys that can improve guest convenience. And smart room technology is kind of another version of that, right? But also it can help reduce costs. So 15% reduction in energy costs with IoT enabled rooms. So some of you may not be familiar with that term. IoT means Internet of Things. It just means that lamps and thermostats and all of these physical devices can be connected to the internet. And so the Internet of Things, right? Objects and physical objects in the real world. And Internet of Things is kind of a huge category. We don't have to get into all of that, but I think in terms of boutique hotels and guest experiences, some guests may enjoy the convenience of controlling room features through mobile apps or voice assistants or things like that. That may be a high bar for some of you. It does take some investment, but keep in mind also that increasingly a lot of these tools are becoming very affordable. So don't assume that you cannot afford any of these things. So if you think about an experience that you want to create for a guest on a mobile device, don't rule it out immediately. Sometimes a little bit of research can find a solution that can allow you to provide a guest with something pretty cool that is not that expensive and not that hard to implement. It also allows energy conservation by turning off systems remotely or automatically, which is something that your management can do. Whether you're an owner or a general manager or a maintenance, manager, these are all things that you can manage remotely and conveniently without having to walk long distances or walk the entire hotel, maybe adjusting thermostats or lights or things of that nature. And these innovations enhance the guest experience and also reduce energy costs. Now, this is something that has emerged kind of recently, I think, for some people. It depends on your market and your target demographic, but social media is really becoming a sales channel, not just a marketing channel. And by that, I mean that 17% of all digital transactions are expected to be social commerce by 2025. So social commerce means that somebody is on a social network and they see a product and they buy it right there. So TikTok, for example, has something called TikTok fulfillment, which is actually encroaching a little bit on Amazon's territory. Amazon, you log into an app, you see a product, you buy it, and then it gets fulfilled from a warehouse and shipped to you, right? Well, TikTok is doing the same thing. They tend to do it for individual products, but some brands have been launched with armies of TikTokers that just promote a certain product, and it is a very visual thing, of course. So TikTok will not only provide the platform for advertising, but then when you sell, there's a buy button, there's a payment, and then also on the back end, they will do the fulfillment as well for that product. So the entire thing is done within TikTok, and it's becoming quite large. So regardless of what happens with TikTok in terms of ownership and some of the talk of banning and things like that, that model, I think, is going to grow in other channels as well, like Instagram, which are similar. And some influencers can turn this type of engagement into bookings. So, influencers kind of have a bad rap because there's a lot of them out there who are frankly scammers. They're just trying to get free rooms and travel the world and promote themselves, right? But there are some influencers out there that have, studied this game. They are professional. They know how to turn viewers into bookings and revenue, and they'll also give you proper reporting and things like that. So I wouldn't discount or dismiss this channel entirely. It is growing, and it can produce quite a few bookings. I mean, that example there on the right, you can see it has a ton of engagement. It's a hotel in Greece. It's a little grayed out, but there are certainly hotels that are getting quite a few bookings that way. And showcasing the property's unique features also through short visually appealing videos can be very effective, right? A lot of people will watch, one or two videos like that and they'll book it, right? If you have a really cool feature of some kind, a lot of people will watch that and make the reservation. And so it's a very quick path from, sort of awareness to revenue. Personalization at every touch point is another very important thing. 74% of travelers prefer hotels that personalize their stay. Now, personalization can mean a lot of different things, but I do think it's something to think about as we enter 2025, because it's going to be something that you can do with a lot of different tools. One of the tools that's become very prominent lately is the hotels network. It's called THN for short, I guess, for some people, but it does a lot of different personalization things on your website. It's grown tremendously with boutique hotels, also with chains, but it's a fairly easy tool to implement, and it does personalize a lot of the content. They also have a loyalty program that's fairly easy to implement, which is, something that boutique hotels are often weak compared to chains, right? So offering any kind of a loyalty incentive is also good. And what's the other thing? I think probably actually the biggest thing with that tool that's pretty unique, I'm not really promoting them. I will have a link down below that will give you a discount. I'm not pocketing any of that money. I thought maybe the link might be there, but I will put it at the bottom of this video. But the best thing about the hotels network, I think, is that it will serve a pop-up and not just tell you that they have the lowest rate, but they will, show you OTA rates. And if the OTA rate is lower for some reason, right, because the OTAs are kind of really using a lot of artificial intelligence and bots, and they are underpricing hotels a lot. It's pretty hard. Even if you want to maintain parity, it's getting harder and harder because the two major OTAs, Booking and Expedia, are doing a lot of independent discounts on their own to kind of compete with each other, and they are undercutting the direct booking price very often. So with that in mind, if the OTA price is lower, what the hotels network will do is immediately, dynamically, it will lower your price within certain boundaries that you establish, right? But it will show in real time when the guest lands there, based on their dates, it will show them a rate that is lower for the direct booking. And it will not ruin your parity, right? Because you still have your published rate, but which, all of the bots will check out the published rate and do the comparison, and then they'll penalize you in their in their OTA if your direct price is lower. But this is real time, right? This is dynamic. So as soon as somebody lands, it will just lower it for them in that moment, but your published rate doesn't change. You still have rate parity, but it will lower it for them, and you're more likely to close that person. So that's what I like. I think that's a real innovation. It's not really a product promotion, but I think it's a real innovation that could help boutique hotels a lot. So anyway, one last thing I want to mention, we do have, if you want to learn some more, we do have a program right now that's going to be launching soon. It's going to be discounted. I don't know the exact amount, but there will also be a link below this video. It's called Revenue is Oxygen. You can always go to revenueisoxygen.com to get more details, but it's going to go into, revenue management, dynamic pricing, marketing and advertising, so you can get more direct bookings. Also, conversion of direct bookings. So a lot of the things you can do on a website, as well as online distribution. So, and channel management. So the three areas are sort of revenue management, which is kind of setting your prices, and then getting more direct bookings with advertising, and direct marketing. And then, and social media also is a big part of that. And then also online distribution, which is essentially OTAs, but also managing that with your direct channel and making sure that all of that is optimized and the most efficient possible. So I think that's about it. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. And thanks a lot for joining. And I wish you all the best of luck in 2025. And also stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to go through the next 10 items. So thanks a lot. Have a good day. Bye-bye.